right, welcome back to One True Podcast. With me, as always, is Zach Smith, Zachary. It's a busy time of year, man.
Yeah, lots going on, but it could be worse. It's Baylor basketball winning, Baylor football also winning. Vibes are high, so it could be
Yeah.
worse.
Good time to be in Waco. Weather's nice. I suspect it's a nice time to be in Morgantown, West Virginia, as well. I've been up there at this time of year, and it's got legit fall up there, with the colors and everything. Uh, this week we've got Cody Nespor on with us. Cody, how long have you covered the Mountaineers?
So it'll be 5 years, but there's 1 year missing in there. So
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, certainly glad for you to come on and drop some knowledge with us this week, and yeah, should be fun. So let's get into it. I mean, so guys, I kind of feel like this weekend is what I would call the Big 12 Bowl between Baylor and West Virginia. Here's what I mean. Maybe better than anyone else, those two teams are reflective of kind of the topsy-turvy roller coaster nature of this conference. Um, West Virginia was down after two consecutive home losses to Iowa State and Kansas State. Now, obviously, those are ranked teams, or at least K State was. Uh, Now the Mountaineers back up again. They've won back-to-back road games over Arizona and Cincinnati. Offense is looking a lot better. So similarly, the Bears were looking like they were going nowhere, and then that was an 0-3 start to Big 12 play. Now they have won three in a row in the Big 12. Um, Honestly, I don't really know what to expect still from either of these teams. I think it still has the chance to go either way. Um, if you told me anything from 5-7 to 8-4 was on the table for either one of them, I would believe you. Um, so my question is this: where do you guys see these teams going? I mean, Cody, we'll start with you.
yeah, just like you, either extreme wouldn't really surprise me. Like if they win out or if they lose out, um, they have played better recently. Obviously, the competition hasn't been as high, but um, they're taking steps. They're looking better. The defense is slowly getting better. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. 3 losses, 3 wins, 2-1, 1-2. Like they're just that kind of team, and like you said, it's that kind of conference this year. It's what do they always say? Like any given Saturday, it's like it's impossible to predict these matchups because you don't know what versions of these teams are showing up every week.
Zach?
These two teams are remarkably similar, kind of in some of the stats, kind of just reflect how close they are in really good or not really good passing defenses, some better running defenses, all that. And I think that if you told Baylor fans at the beginning of the year that you're sitting with 3 weeks left and you have 5 wins, I think most of them would sign up for that in a heartbeat. And I think that if they make a bowl game, which, my money would be on them making a bowl game, I think most people would say that would be a successful season for Baylor. So I think the worry now, if you want to call it a worry, is you don't want to get like overconfident. Like if they don't win all three of these games, if Baylor finishes 0-3 and misses a bowl game, yeah, that's disappointing. But if they lose 2 of 3, look at the big picture. I still think that's a positive step for the Bears. So I agree. It's impossible to predict where they're going and how this season is going to end. But I still think, you know, I think both of these teams are bowl teams, and I think it's pretty easy to say that both of them should be in the postseason, no matter how Saturday goes for either of them.
I agree. I agree. I think there are winnable games on both of them's schedule. I think when you have such streaky teams, um, it's naturally it's natural for the fan base to start getting worried when you get to five and there's only three left, and it's like because we certainly could go on a three-game losing streak here. I mean that's always a fear, I think, but I agree. I feel like both of these teams will be in a bowl. So I want to go back to last year, because I feel like Neal Brown may be the perfect role model for Dave Aranda. Um, so last year, Brown came into the season squarely on the hot seat. I mean, there may not have been a guy in the country that whose seat was hotter. They clearly had to win. At Big 12 Media Days, he famously chastised everyone in the room. He was like, he couldn't believe we had picked West Virginia last in the conference, and then he went out and sort of lived up to that because the Mountaineers were 9-4. They win a bowl game over North Carolina. Um, so then Aranda. Meanwhile, Baylor goes 3-9 last year, and he's on the hot seat. It looked like he might lose his job last year. Mac Rhodes decided to keep him around. And Baylor run comes into this year bowl or bust. I mean, they have to at least make a bowl game to save Aranda's job. And now they're on the cusp of one. So, Cody, what's the feeling right now among West Virginia fans about Neal Brown? And then I'll flip it around to you, Zach. Do you think Aranda will be here long term?
Yeah, so Neal's actually back on the hot seat.
Mm,
The fan base is about as out on him as they've ever been.
wow.
Um, because they have four losses this year. It was their four biggest games: Penn State, Pitt, Iowa State, Kansas State. And people are just it's Neal's record against ranked teams is really bad. He hasn't beaten a ranked team in 3 years. Like if you go through, it's like when was the last real big win for the Mountaineers? It's been a while, and people are kind of, especially to get blown out at home by Iowa State and Kansas State. People are really out on Neal again, and these wins over Arizona and Cincinnati haven't fixed that. And I don't even really think if they squeak into a bowl at 6-6, that's not going to fix that either. And like there's an outside shot, like there's a scenario that's not super unlikely that they could win out and win a bowl and have 9 wins again, and it would be the most miserable 9-win fan base in the country.
Wow.
I mean, that's just and I don't know if you guys know, we have warring billboards in Morgantown right now because some people paid for fire Neal Brown billboards,
Wow.
and then a couple days later, other people paid for keep Neal Brown billboards. So it's certainly not all sunshine and rainbows up here right now.
Man, that's wild to hear because I mean I feel like the 9-win season last year would have bought him a little bit of grace, and then you know 5-4 is not terrible, I
Yeah.
mean, but like you said, I guess it's the losses, when they came. Zach, how about Dave? What do you think?
Yeah, that's surprising to hear. I kind of thought Neal Brown was a little bit more loved in West Virginia than that, but I obviously don't live there, so we're
Yeah.
talking to the man who would know that. But yeah, I think Dave is, a long-term answer for Baylor for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think, you mentioned Mac Rhodes. I think he and Baylor, the administration, love him as a person, as a
Hmm.
human, all of these things that we've talked about before. And I think that, he's very certainly a competent football coach. And I think the second reason would be kind of as we move into this new era of NIL with revenue sharing and all of it, and we get all the money stuff that's going to be confusing to talk about all throughout this next offseason. You know, I look at places like Florida and Baylor that have a coach that have a large buyout. And, just because everybody's going to have revenue sharing and it's going to be somewhat of a salary cap, NIL structure still is going to exist. And I think that if you have a competent coach like Dave Aranda is, I think you just keep him around and put any buyout money kind of funnel it back into the program to build a winning roster. So, yeah, I think he is. I think he's going to be safe this year. Um, it's going to be certainly interesting to talk about next year. Can you do it again? Can you take that step up? Can you fight for the Big 12 title? But we'll cross that bridge when we get here. But yes, I think Dave is the long-term answer at Baylor, and I'd be surprised if he's gone after this year.
Certainly with the way the season has gone, I think he has saved his job, especially if he gets one more win, then I think, that pretty much locks him in. You know, you mentioned the revenue sharing and the new financial model and everything. I do feel like that's a legit thing. You know, we've seen around the country a few schools like raise fees for students, add little like ticket fee or whatever, in there. I think like, okay, I mean, these schools are not going to be destitute. It's not like they're not making any money, but their margins of profit have, been trimmed a lot because of all of this paying of the players. And we're seeing, I think, some cases where they're going to have to get a little more creative. And so I think, Zach, you're right. I mean, if you have a buyout, and maybe that leads to like fewer buyouts written into contracts.
I think we're going to see a shifting in kind of how much coaches are paid, or maybe how that contract is structured. So maybe they get more, upfront, or they get more yearly, but less on the back end, or like I don't know. I don't want to get into it right now. Just, I think Dave Aranda was lucky to sign a contract extension when he did,
Mm,
because I think if he had 1 or 2 years left on his contract extension and he were up for a renewal, or they were going to fire him or whatever, I think it would be, he'd have to take a pay cut. I think we're going to see pay cuts across the country for coaches, but
mm.
that's a deeper point. And I don't know how much, how long is Neal Brown's contract, Cody? Do you know that? Do you know how long
Um,
he has? Like, would it be a big buyout if they did fire him?
so it's funny. Neal actually took a pay cut this offseason.
Mm.
They added a year on the back end, but he took a pay cut that lowered his buyout. Um, and it actually just, I believe, a couple weeks ago, his buyout just dipped below 10 million for the first time. Which, like I said, people are keeping track of what Neal's buyout is every week. But no, like you said, coaches taking pay cuts. Neal did that this week. It lowered his buyout, but gave him an extra year. And I think it was like $400,000 a year
Hmm.
pay cut.
Wow. Well, maybe those billboard people are, getting together their change and seeing if that's just crazy to me. Warring
Oh
billboards.
yeah, oh yeah,
That
we're
is
having fun
so,
up here.
that is wild. That is wild. Well, college football, man. So in the new CFP rankings that came out Tuesday, um, Big 12 leader and unbeaten BYU came in sixth. So that would mean that the Cougars, if you were playing it out, like if the season ended today, they would get one of those first round buys in the 12 team playoff. So should everyone in the Big 12 be like rooting for BYU to, to win out and then maybe do some damage in the Big 12 just for the good of the conference? How do we feel about this? Cody,
Yeah,
what do
I've,
you think?
yeah, I've never really liked that because, like, to me, conference pride only goes so far. Like,
Right.
if you want to root for your conference mates to win their bowl games, that's like, that's fine. But I don't know, and especially like if obviously Utah's not going to root for BYU,
Right.
but like I think there should kind of be some animosity in the conference. Like even with these new teams that don't have any history, it's like because that to me is what makes college football special. It's like, maybe there should be some hate watching, right? Maybe there should be
Yeah,
some
yeah.
rooting against. Now, the powers that be in the Big 12 are rooting for BYU, I'm sure. And there's probably athletic directors rooting for BYU.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in right there before we get to Zach. Zach is a Michigan State alum.
You took the words out of my mouth, Bryce.
Yeah, and so last week I sent him a little. I tagged him on Twitter because I saw this video shared of the Ohio State band uh, making the form of a bear. Also, he's a band nerd, by the way. Um, they formed a bear, and then they had over here in the corner a Michigan logo, and the bear ended up pooping onto the Michigan logo. And I just knew, I was like, oh, Zach's got to see this. And his response was,
I love everything about it. I love it. I love it. It's oh man. Like as soon as you sent this question, as soon as I read this question, I thought about last season and Michigan winning the national championship. And it- like if I take off the green and white colored glasses, yes, I think that was good for Michigan State that Michigan won the big I hate myself for saying that. I hate it. I hate it.
you got to
But
take a shower after this. But
yeah, and I see Cody with the Slippery Rock t-shirt, and I know
Oh
that they
yeah.
have their Michigan connection, so whatever. But um yeah, I think I kind of disagree. I think a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think if you're the Big 12 and you've got this reputation right now of you're kind of the redheaded stepchild of the power conferences where there's not a power. There's not one team like an Oregon or a Texas that is just going to, or even Miami to a degree, that's going to dominate everything. I think you need that if you want
yeah,
to be on the
yeah,
national stage. And, so like if you're Baylor and it's, BYU and Colorado and they make a deep run in the playoff, like you can tell yourself, you might be delusional a little bit, but you can tell yourself and you can look at how Baylor played against BYU and Colorado. You can say, man, we were this close. That could be Baylor like really easily.
right.
And so I think, yes, I get the fan side of things and I feel the fan side of things as a Michigan State alum, but I think for the conference and for just everybody in general, you kind of need your conference to show out in the playoff.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it was actually big for the Big 12 a couple of seasons ago when TCU, got into the national championship game. Now, they didn't win it. They got hammered. So that wasn't good for the conference. But uh, baby steps, I think, and this league really could stand to win a national championship in
Mm.
football. That would really be, good for the league. But because I think everyone right now looks at the SEC and Big Ten as way up above everyone else, and I think the ACC and the Big 12 are kind of fighting for the crumbs a little bit.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you gotta take your wins where you can. We've talked about it before, but we'll see if they get two in. I think
I think
it's
it's
gonna
pretty unlikely.
it's
I
gonna
think
be iffy. It's
you
gonna be
need
iffy.
Colorado and BYU to win out, and then probably Colorado to win the Big 12 title. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah,
That's what's
yeah.
going to happen.
I think I think Colorado is the probably the best hope for a second Big 12 team just because besides their resume, they would just be buzzy with Dion and Travis Hunter and Shador. Um, so let's talk about that, keep it on the conference. After 9 games, who's the biggest disappointment in the conference for you, and who's the biggest surprise? And I guess it could be team, it could be player. I don't care. What do you think?
Um, there's certainly a lot to pick from for
Yeah,
disappointment, huh?
there are.
I'd probably say Kansas because like this was supposed to be their year. Jalen
Right.
Daniels was, maybe, gonna have like a Heisman push at some point, and it hasn't materialized. Um, and there, that's because like Oklahoma State's like every team has a down year every once in a while, and but Kansas was like the team on the rise. They were kind of the feel good story. They're finally good after so long, and to kind of just drop right back, kind of stinks. And then surprise, like BYU and Colorado are the obvious ones, but to me it's Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
because I thought they were going to struggle to win a Big 12 game. Like I thought they were the worst team in the conference in the preseason, and for them to be in this whole mess with all the 4-2 teams, that I'm quite impressed by that.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I know Zach, you were high on Arizona State,
Ben High, yeah.
but I don't think would you have seen this coming at the start of the year this
No,
fast?
not this fast, but like I said earlier this season, I really like Kenny Dillingham. I think he's a good coach, and I think that when you get a few players like Sam Levitt, who I know well from watching him at Michigan State, is a capable quarterback, and Cam Scatabo is a really good running back, and you get some dudes from Texas on that defense. Like, no, I don't think the Sun Devils are. I'm not surprised at all that they're doing what they're doing this season.
Hmm.
Um,
So who's your surprise?
Houston is my surprise.
I agree with that. Like
I thought
I
I thought they
thought
were
they
going to
were
be.
I thought they were like on the track to be 2-10, and then they jumped up and beat some teams.
I mean, beating Kansas State and Utah in back-to-back weeks. Like, say what you will about how Utah is, and even Kansas State, but those are two really good teams, solid NFL dudes on on those rosters. And I was questionable about Willie Fritz's at that hire, and from what I understand, he likes to tear it down to the studs and then build it back up, which he's done really well in the past. But I thought they were going to struggle this year, like bad. And for them to be 3-3 in the conference, like that's good for them. They're
And you
on
know
the
how
way
I
up.
feel about Willie Fritz. I
Uh,
love Willie Fritz. I covered Willie Fritz back at Blinn College in the 90s, long time ago. And so, yeah, I think he'll do a great job. But how about your disappointment? Who would that be?
I can't overlook Oklahoma State. Like that's just it seems like when you have someone like Ollie Gordon, who last year was a legit Heisman contender, and you have all five of your offensive linemen coming back, you have a couple linebackers that dominated that were in the top five in tackles in the Big 12 a year ago. Like you had all these pieces and you have all this NIL, everything at Oklahoma State says they should be the one to step up and fill the void for Oklahoma and that Oklahoma and Texas left, and you haven't. You fall and not just you haven't. You fall on your face and you like
Right.
trip over yourself. And I know there's injuries and excuses, but I don't know. Every time I watch a Mike Gundy press conference, it seems like he's completely uninterested in his team, in just everything. It's just like all he wants to do is pontificate about the state of college football and talk about all the things how it was better back in the day when they were scoring 50 points and all that. Like I don't know. There's just some weird stuff going on in Stillwater that I just think it's very disappointing to see.
The
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
the problem with Gundy is nothing he does could ever surprise me. So like going 0-9 in the conference to me is just like, oh, that's Gundy,
Right.
right? It's like of course that's just kind of who he is and the persona he's built. It's like anything's possible, even the bad stuff.
But it's
Yeah,
like take some responsibility for
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at least it's don't just like I don't know, blame the fans or
Yeah.
blame like they're just like take some ownership of what's happening and say, all right, this is what's going on. This is how I'm gonna fix it. Or, don't just I don't know. That just rubs me the wrong way.
Oh
well,
yeah.
and Zach, we had Barry Trimmel on our podcast earlier this year and asked him about, if they were to continue to kind of lose and stuff, if he would be on the hot seat. And Barry didn't necessarily think so, that he had enough cachet there in Stillwater as both a, former Oklahoma State quarterback and just what he's done over the years. Obviously, Oklahoma State has been pretty consistent over the years, but I don't know because I know Oklahoma State fans. I've got a few friends who are, and they're not quite as happy about Gundy. So, yeah, I don't know. Um, Zach is coming to Morgantown this weekend, Cody. He'll be flying into Pittsburgh, which I know that's what you do. I've
Yep.
been to Morgantown before. Are there places in Pittsburgh or in Morgantown that he should check out while he's there?
Um, if you're an outdoorsman, it's still just about warm enough. There's a state park basically right here in Morgantown. Um, Food wise, Mario's Fish Bowl is like the college spot. Um,
Okay.
Downtown, there's a place called Iron Horse Tavern. That's a favorite of mine. Um, Although I wouldn't try going downtown on Saturday. If you've never been here, town fills up. Town doesn't
Yeah.
quite hold 60,000, but 60,000 still show up.
Right. No, that's fair. That's completely fair. It's wild walking up to the stadium on a game day for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, and I don't know if you'll see it. There'll be a lot of tailgating in the hospital parking lot.
Okay.
That's where the tailgating
Well,
happens.
I
The
guess
hospital's
if
the
anything
hospital's right
happens, you're
next
right
door.
there. If anything happens, you're right there.
Right. Start choking on a brat and just get taken to the ER. Well, Cody, thanks again, man. It's been fun, and yeah, I mean, we'll see what comes out of this Mountaineers and Bears game on Saturday. Like I said, I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I think I would predict a Baylor loss just because they always lose in Morgantown.
Right.
But Zach, what do you think?
I tend to agree. I am yeah. There's something in the water there. I don't
Yeah,
mean that in a bad way.
no,
Well,
it's
there is something in the water.
right, like literally actually, but yeah.
good stuff. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.